Welcome back to Rollin with Olan. I'm your host, Jeff Olin. So today I have a really special guest. I always do, right? But today he's a friend. I've known him for a long time. He's a third generation boom operator. And I am so happy to have you and welcome to the show, Chris Cooper.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks very much, brother. Thanks for having me.
Chris, it's so great to see you. You look wonderful. Let me ask, let's dig in here. Let's start out with, tell us about your youth and growing up as a third generation boom operator. What was that like? And just give us a little bit of your early days.
Well, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley here in Los Angeles, California. My father was a boom operator. My grandfather was actually a sound mixer.
Hmm.
So from 1931 to 1971, my grandfather worked in Hollywood. And then from 64 to 2007, my father worked in Hollywood. And then I got in 2001. So growing up in LA was a great experience. I enjoyed it very much. And so much, I decided to follow in my family's footsteps and continue the journey here in Los Angeles.
Cool. So you had never really, had you ever thought about doing anything else, or was it always like, hey, my father is in it, my dad's in it, let me just go into this? Was it kind of that easy?
I mean, I was kind of exposed to it very young, and it was a good thing to see. So I think once you see your dad at work having a good time, making a good living, I think something like that, you kind of like latch onto and you say, oh, you know what? I'm going to do that. Somehow you kind of manifest it, and yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
what I ended up doing.
Yeah, yeah, and you never look back, which is wonderful. And you do so. You're one of the hardest working guys I know. Seriously. Um, so your grandfather was a sound mixer. Your dad was a boom operator.
Yes.
That's what you said, right? And so, how is it? What is the collaboration between a mixer and a boom operator?
Oh, well, I mean, that can vary. It's the recording aspect of a sound mixer, and you know, depending on how many people are talking in one scene, how many microphones that mixer is mixing on a mixing panel. A relationship with the boom operator. It's a pretty big and personal experience. There's a lot of communication back and forth, or there has the potential to be, and it's a very collaborative, they're very collaborative positions that you can.
Yeah, and speaking of collaborative, you talk about how you're collaborative with the sound mixer. You also have to be collaborative with the camera department. You also have to be collaborative with the wardrobe department. I mean, when you're because let me ask you. You're hooking up microphones to the actors, and yet you're still using a boom most of the time for movies and television. Maybe you could explain why you're doing that when you already have them covered with a little mic. And also, on top of that, going into like, you did the show Scandal, for instance. You did that for 4 seasons, I believe. Um, how is that working with like the wardrobe department? They're putting an actor or actress into something like they probably put Kerry Washington into an outfit, and that you're like going and you're going through that outfit to put your microphone there.
They
I mean,
would
that's
put her in these big jackets, these like wool jackets. They were like Gucci or some, you know, super high end name brand, and then you end up poking a microphone right through a buttonhole, and it ends up being okay. It takes a few minutes, but, and then put a pack down her leg, and yeah, I mean, that's how it is. There's a lot of, you're always going to do some shots or a series of shots where it's going to be so wide that you can't get a boom over the actors. So,
okay. So that's why,
so that's one of the reasons. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What's another reason?
Well, sometimes, you might be doing a scene where, say, you have 8 people talking, and you have, a couple of actors that are very deep in the background, that you might have 2 booms covering this group of 6 actors at a table or whatever. And then the mixer can play the radio mics on. the deep characters where there's a lot of headroom and it might just sound better. It might just make more sense in the scheme of, until you can do close-ups, there's always cameras that are seeing more that will allow you to have microphones just all over. The way they shoot things now, it's multiple cameras all the time. So when they started movies and TV, it was one camera. Over the course of history, it's, then it became two cameras occasionally, then two cameras all the time, then three cameras, and so forth. And, it's what it is. So, so you have to adapt. So there's always reasons to have wires on the actors. And at some point, the mixer can play them at any point. You might be doing a scene at a table where, the people on this side of the table are on camera, so you can get a couple booms. And then you'll play the wires on the backs to the camera. You turn around, then you do the opposite. So it's kind of stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, because I wondered about that. I mean, I would always see you guys, putting the boom up there and also yet putting the little mics on people. So, and when you talk about the boom, Chris, the boom, I mean, the boomstick is called a boomstick, or is it called a fishbowl? I've heard different things about it. What is that?
Fishbowl, boom pole, yes.
And
the boom, there's actually, the boom is like when you would see sitcoms.
Yeah.
They would have those arms. Sometimes they're up high in the green beds, and then they're also down low. Those are real booms. Like when you go on to like single camera TV shows, those are fishbowls. You guys want ones.
And you're holding it. You're holding those things. I mean, sometimes you could be holding those for like, if it's a long scene. I mean, what if how do you train yourself to hold it for a really long scene, and all of a sudden you've got a scratch, you got an itch, you got to scratch it or something? I mean, how does that? Because I've seen some long scenes in movies and television shows, and they go forever, and that the boom you're there and you're holding that thing, and you're like, how do you do that? You have to train your mind.
Yeah, you don't train your mind. You just keep doing it over. You just muscle memory. Just repetition. Just the more you do, the more you get used to being in these positions. You fully extend your arms. Sometimes you can drop them down a little bit. Sometimes you have to keep them locked into place. It's
and then you're dealing with those little furry things on the end of it. I mean, they come in different sizes. That's the microphone, right? That's the microphone, and they come in different sizes. But you also have to. You have to make sure that you don't have a shadow, so you're working with the camera department very closely as well, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you're working with the camera, lighting, the electricians, the grips.
Yeah, where they're where they're focusing, and I'm sure there's times where they might
be putting light ups, and they need to get certain parts of it to where you want to get like a topper, or you might want to get like a cider to get light off the side of a wall, or off, you might want to get a shadow, so you might want to, take a shadow down so you have something that, kind of takes the top part of the light out, and then you can kind of blur the background out. And these guys, they do so much, it's with the lighting, all the different styles of lighting. Just depends on how the director of photography wants to light.
Yeah. Do you learn something different on every show or movie that you're on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You do, because every director works differently, obviously, and every DP works differently.
It's all different. Every single project I've ever done, there's people who go about their jobs a little bit different. Same job, just there's no right or wrong way. It's just the way people operate. It's just Yeah.
And how does the sound then, like, how's that sync to picture?
Well, the time code. Yeah, so they'll photograph like the slate. You see the slate, how they photograph the slate at first.
Yeah.
And so then they'll clap that. They'll see numbers on that slate. It lights up with the numbers. Those numbers generate from the sound mixer's cart. He programs those numbers in. You jam it. You basically input a cable into the back end of the slate. Now it's got the information and the camera photographs that. So then they take what the sound mixers recorded and what the cameras have recorded in post-production, and they sync it up.
I gotcha. I gotcha. That's interesting. Yeah, because sometimes we watch TV and you don't see it synced. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen that, and you see like somebody's talking, but you don't see the sound sync to that.
Sometimes that can be a broadcasting glitch too, where it's just a broadcast error. But yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes things could be out of sync. Absolutely, we've all seen it.
Yeah. How do you prep? For like a day? For any particular day, is there a prep that you go through?
Yeah, you get all the stuff ready that you need to for that, particular. Sometimes sometimes you might do 3 scenes in a day. You just prep scene by scene. You got 5 people talking. You need to get 5 wires ready. You'll take the time to, the wires, they come in different colors now. So depending on what the wardrobe is, you might have people in white shirts, button-up shirts. So let me get 5, of these white wires ready. It's, you get the microphone.
You have it all, like you have a package. You have a package basically that you put together for each.
The various sound mixers that I work for, or the sound mixers that get hired for the projects, those are the people that usually bring in the equipment. So you'll get their equipment ready for each scene. Yeah. That's basically how that works.
Sound is so important to any movie or any television show, as we all know, commercials as well. I would imagine, the locations, take a show like Deadwood, which I know you worked on. You have that Western set on Deadwood.
Yeah, Melody Ranch.
Yeah, I can't imagine how that is, how you work the sound with that. You probably have all kinds of different obstacles there. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, they did have a lot of obstacles. It was always, we'd be doing some sort of scene, and like you'd be shooting on these boardwalks, that would be surrounding these, bars and brothels and establishments that were part of the city of Deadwood. And they're loud. And you got the miners, the people that lived in the town, their boots are loud. So we would line lots of carpets on the boardwalks, and, we would do all these sound abatement things where we're always putting down things to make it quieter so it's not so slappy and echoey. Getting the wires and all the actors mic'd, was always a challenge on that show because they had so much costume, but you could really get them into a place where they always usually sounded really good. And, it was a challenging show. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so the different environments basically affect how the sound waves are, I'm guessing, on anything. Because you could have somebody walking across the floor in like little heels. That will, I know, right? It happens all the time. How many times we're on set and they're like, quiet, we gotta, because they're hearing somebody, you guys especially.
Yes, absolutely. So you're always trying to make the environment as quiet as you can. You might be shooting next to a freeway, or if you're in a restaurant, and you're shooting next to a bar, hopefully the locations people will take care of getting things unplugged. So when you show up, it's pretty quiet. You just have to go and make sure it's all pretty good. But then you might have to kill a bunch of stuff in the kitchen as well. Bunch of vents and all the hoods, all the exhaust fans, and all the refrigeration that's back there. So that's all the work.
Yeah. And how do you put in, like, when you're, when we're all on a set and we've done all the shots, we've done everything, and then afterwards, usually it's called for room tone. Can you explain room tone?
Room tone.
I guess it's in later, right? That's later.
Room tone is something where, because the cameras and the sound it's all digital. So like when you hit record on the recorder now, there's like a 15 second pre-roll. So used to be when in the I hate to use the term old days, but when they would roll film and they would roll quarter inch, they didn't just like excessively roll because it was all very expensive to sync up. So they would have to get room tone of just like say like 30 seconds of the sound mixer. The sound mixer would just hit record and they would just record the sound of the environment.
Hmm.
Kind of like, so if you and I are quiet, that's the sound of the environment, right? So now you get so much of that in pre-record, you don't really need to do room tone anymore. There's a lot of it in between, the slating of the sound mixer saying 24 Apple take 2 and the action going on that they can usually pull it out of there. So they don't really do room tone anymore.
Not too much. So it's old school.
Yeah, but for a reason, because that's when they would roll. Only when they'd say roll, they would hit the slate and they would do the scene. Everything was really quick. Now they're going to say rolling and they're just going to slowly get into everything because it's a lot less to sync everything up. It's not,
Yeah.
not what it used to be.
Yeah, definitely not. You've done so many movies and television shows over the years. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind that, you were doing and you had any kind of, problems doing sound? Because, let me say this too. There's so many remote locations. You could be in the desert, you could be up in the mountains, you're carrying equipment, this or that. That could be one of the things. But I mean, is there any stories that you can just think of that you could share that might have been a problem?
No, I mean, it's always the same. You set up as close as you can and you get everything prepared. There's a video village. There's places where you're going to, set up, operate from. I remember years ago, this was like late 2000s, like some point 2007, 2008. We were in White Sands, New Mexico, and we were working on a movie, and we would put a radio mic on an actor, which is a mic pack, a transmitter, and it would send a signal back to the sound card, back to his set of receivers. You could send this guy out for like almost a mile out, and we were still getting a signal. Wow. And it was just sometimes you go to where you can't even get the guy, an eighth of a mile, or 200 feet, 150 feet. And so, everything's always got its own set of, to be honest, everything's always comparable. No real huge problems, I mean,
yeah. You figure it out. You adjust to it.
That's you figure it out.
You've been doing it long enough. One of the shows that you did was True Detective. What can you tell us about that? Because it's great. You did two seasons, I believe, on True Detective. Yeah. New Orleans and what?
Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Oh, Arkansas. Yeah.
Arkansas.
Anything on that show that you care to share?
Everything was a challenge because we were, in some area that everywhere was, somewhere we'd never been before. Every day we'd go somewhere. Oh, we have no idea. So we'd have to learn the environments as we were there. And, it was fun. It was hot. It was humid, and there were fun shows to work on, areas that were, you would never go there, if you weren't, doing project we were working on. So it was cool. The actors were always very quiet in those shows because they were always figuring out a crime, so we would always have the mics as close on the actors, on the edge of their clothing, or, on the frame line of the camera. So, it was, that kind of stuff, had its challenges for those shows, as opposed to like doing a comedy where they're like really loud. So, it's
yeah. Do you what kind of rap do you have afterwards? Like when the day's over, Is there anything that you have to do, or is it just
Just
all?
depends where you are. If you're on a stage show, sometimes you can literally like leave stuff. You come back the next day, but like those True Detective shows, we'd always wrap, and then you'd have to put everything back onto like some sort of like um, temporary transportation vehicle, a stake bed, and they would drive you back to where the housing, the trailer for the carts are, because you're shooting in an area where they literally can't get these big vehicles in. So they take smaller vehicles, they take you in and out. So now we have to take our equipment back, wrap it, strap it down, make it ready so it can travel for the next day. So it just depends on what you're doing and where you are and what you're doing the next day. So you always got to think ahead,
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's yeah.
just
I
like
mean,
everything else in life, right?
everything else, right? We have to think ahead. I mean, there's no directions with life, right? We have to just kind of figure it out,
Yeah,
and
you figure it out as you go.
and we've been doing that for a long time. I've known you for a long time, Chris. It's always great to talk to you about the biz and all that. What's your favorite part about what you do?
Just collaborating with different people, meeting all kinds of interesting people that are in the film community that, just they're out there doing their craft. And of course, going to, various locations, you never go really to the same place over and over. I mean, you do get on shows where you go to the same locations, but it's never the same. It's
Yeah.
always different. Even if you're shooting on the same set, it's always going to be a little bit different. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I, I,
Yeah, I
I
get
like that.
I get it. And you work so close, like with the actors. A lot of departments don't get nearly as close to the actors. Have you become friends with any actors, over the
Yeah,
years?
of course, absolutely. You're at times you're closer than the camera.
That's right.
When you're booming, you're 10 feet away, 6 feet away. I mean, sometimes the cameras are kind of far back,
Hmm.
and they might be operating the camera from a remote head or from a remote station. So
Yeah.
might just be me and the actor and the camera, which is operated by a guy that's like 30 feet over there.
Yeah, you're right there, and they want to make sure that they're doing their sound right. Obviously, you're talking to them in between. You're having you're when you're
Yeah.
breaking, you're
Oh
talking to them,
yeah.
having all kinds of stories about
When
family.
you get to wire them, you get to know these people. You start wiring them day after day. You start having conversations. It's just like anything else.
Yeah, yeah, and they're. I mean, look, we both
They're
know
just people as well.
they're people. They're people. They have stories to tell. They're regular people. They just happen to be in a position of
100%.
acting, doing what they want to do. Hopefully, in most cases, and they're all great. They're all great folks. So yeah, because
Yeah, it's fun.
you get a lot closer than the majority of people,
Yeah,
and
I
and that's great.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
what do you think? Um, I've been thinking a long time, Chris, on this, but where do you think AI might come into play with, or do you think it'll come into play with the sound department at all, or do you think that that's a one-off that really is so important that AI may not even ever come into play?
I really don't know a whole lot about that. I can't really say. I know what we do is very specialized. I'm sure there's always some sort of technology that can replace it, but the way the film industry moves, I don't know if that's practical. So, I mean, I guess, we'll have to all see it play out together.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, we'll have to. I know it's a topic in today's society, but we just have to see it all play out. I mean,
yeah, we certainly don't want a robot holding the boom. We don't need that.
it's kind of, you know, creating motion pictures is kind of the humans, operating equipment. It would seem a little too artificial, but I don't know. Who knows? I'm sure for some platforms they will do that. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
we'll
There
see.
are.
How they, we'll see
Yeah.
how they can make TV shows and movies. I mean, we'll all see this together. You know.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of talk about it. What positions AI may take over or not. I don't
Yeah.
really. I mean, I don't think about it on a daily basis. Although, even as a background casting director, I should, because that's going to be probably one of the first. But I don't think it's going anywhere yet. I think it's going to be around. I think we're going to still be able to do what we do for a while longer, and
Yeah,
whether
I
that
think so.
a while's 2 years or 5 years, where AI is just in its, let's hope it's more of an infancy in our industry
Yeah,
right now.
yeah,
you know
yeah,
let's
definitely.
hope, let's hope on that. um, what advice would you give to students or people around the world who want to get into the sound business of movies and television, and in particular a boom person? I mean, there's a
It's
lot of people that are tuning in from all over the place and watching. uh, they're looking for someone, who has a clear voice, who has been doing it for a long time. And Chris, you have, and so you are on the spot, sir.
well, I got into it because I was exposed to it early on in terms of the experience that people have while they're working. You know, see my dad at work having a great time. To me, that left a pretty, serious mark. So uh, to be able to create art with other people, it's an amazing way to make a living, and I hope that we can all continue to do that. Study your craft. If you want to do it, then make your breakthrough and
Work on
find.
independent films, perhaps. Maybe they could go work on independent films. I mean, is there any kind of schooling that they could go to for sound or sound mixing or boom operating? Is there any
Yeah, of
school?
course, absolutely. Your best way is probably going to be learn it hands on. Just go
Mhm.
out there, start working on your friend's, project, whatever
French
that
project,
is.
independent filmmaking.
However that works out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that it learned, if you have interest and you've already watched, X amount of films, so you have some sort of idea of the personnel, who these people are, what they do. So, I would say, become really good at what you want to be, and just, do that.
Yeah, because there's so many people that are daily trying to get into the industry. I mean, we know that there's tons of people that want to be actors and people who want to be producers and this and that and what have you. And it's not all that simple. It's not all that easy. You have to
Right.
work for it, right? You have to
Yeah.
get out there. You have to find the way. I always say call the local, wherever you're living, call the local film office, talk to them about it, find out where they're doing the independent filmmaking, or like you said, friends.
Sure.
And it's easy nowadays to make a film, or even, try. I mean, you have to try. The bottom line is you have to try. And every film or TV needs sound, and
Yeah.
learn the way you go. Like you said, you learned from your dad and you learned from your grandfather, but people can learn from others. It's like getting out there and doing it, getting in the trenches and doing it. There's no other way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. If you want to do sound, you want to be a boom operator. Once they put a camera up, put the microphone out there. What are the lights going up? If you have problems, let them know right away, so you can get that handled. So when they bring in first team, that you've got all your problems handled and there's no boom shadows, and that you've got all the carpets put down for any kind of noises that the feet are going to make, shoes, loud surfaces. Get all that done as fast as you can. When the cameras are setting up, they're laying all the dolly stuff. You got to be doing all that as well. Putting the mics on the actors. Time is money. You don't have a lot of time to waste. So once they're done rehearsing and you can start wiring the actors, so you can get on set and work out all the issues that you're going to have as a boom operator, that's probably the most important thing that you're going to do.
And those people who are in the industry, they already know. But for the people that aren't, first team is your principal actors. And second
Yeah,
team are the
yeah, yeah,
so it's
yeah.
really
So
important.
yeah, that's the thing that will get you as a boom operator is just not being prepared. So while you're out there working out the lights, as they're all getting set, you're cramming the dialogue into your head so you have the cues down. So if you have a scene with four people, this guy's talking, well, you know the last four lines of what he's going to say. You go over to this actor here, he's going to have a couple lines, or he might have a full sentence. And then in your mind, you have those last few lines that they're going to say, which then cues you over to the next actor. So you got the. So meanwhile, you're also working out the lights too, and then there's another camera coming in. So now you got to what position you are going to work in. Now you have to go over to this side of the camera. So it's all, there's all these variables that you as a boom operator being on set, which is you have to be there the whole time. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
super
I've often seen the boomstick, uh, different. I mean, I've seen several that are different. Is there something about them, about the boomsticks, that you are some of them a little more advanced, or is it just the look of it, or is there probably one or two companies that make them? I'm not sure. I
yeah,
can't figure.
different companies. Yeah,
Are they all
yeah.
pretty much the same? They just look different.
Some of them are made with different materials. Some of them are go out to different lengths.
Hmm.
So there's a couple different variables, but for the most part, when you're doing single camera TV shows, which even though they call it single camera, there's still going to be like 2 and 3 cameras. You're going to use a fishbowl,
Hmm.
and so yeah, there's lots of different companies now that are making
Yeah. Do you have any challenges on a daily basis
them.
that that you'd like to somehow fix, somehow try to figure out to do it better?
I mean, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good setup. So
Yeah. So stick with it.
just do
Why
as
fix
well.
what ain't broke?
Just do as well as I can every day.
Yeah.
My
Why fix what ain't broke? You also did Young Sheldon.
Yeah,
How was that show?
that was fun. Yeah, it was good. It was. I was there for about 2.5 years, and it was great. It was a comedy. Everybody's upbeat. Everybody's happy. Cast was great. They were. It was a very. The actors when they did their dialogue, they were loud. So you could just the mic's up there, and it was a good experience. I was very sad when it ended because I always said like, oh, this is the show that you'd want to do forever. It was fun.
Yeah. Well, with a good comedy show, and obviously you've been there, you've been through the takes, you know the jokes. I mean, you have to
Yeah,
still, as you're holding that boom, and the joke comes. I mean, you have to really, you yourself have to
we would
like dig.
always crack up. We would crack up. It's funny because on some of those shows, sometimes the producers will be in the back and they're laughing. And you're like, oh, is this going to be okay? But you can't really tell them to be quiet. It's like, you know what I mean. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of people laughing all the time, which who doesn't want to be around that? I always like doing comedies. I think it's a blast.
Yeah, it is a blast. But with comedies and stuff like that, you're usually always working on a soundstage, so it's probably more challenges, maybe, than working on a location. Although, no, you know what? You stated it earlier. Locations can be very
Shows
hard.
where you're out there in the sticks, or where you're out on location and you're kind of like you hit the ground running. And you're kind of like learning the environment, and as you're doing like 3 or 4 other things, So when you get to a sound stage, you know
It's
it's
a
you,
more
you know
controlled environment, right? Yeah. That's what I thought about it after I said it, but it is. I mean, we know so many things so many sounds on the soundstage can be happening. A construction crew working on a set
Then
next
we're going
door.
to send somebody out there and tell them to
Right.
stop. You know what I mean? So it's not like yeah, we're just like, hey, we hear that. Can you go out there and tell them, or however you want to handle it, we hear that.
Yeah,
You
it's a
know,
little easier.
oh, okay, cool. You want to do that? Okay, cool. You know what I mean? It's up to them.
Yeah, it's
Young
easier.
Sheldon, like a show like that, we shot that at Warner Brothers,
Yeah, gotcha.
and they had like uh, we had our own security guards that were assigned to the show. So if there was anything going on outside the stage, those people would go out there and shut it down right away.
Yeah, I guess it's a lot easier than if you're on location somewhere and there's somebody cutting a lawn, 5 homes down, but it's up in the hills. Then location has to go out there. If they still
Yeah,
don't shut it down, they have to pay them a little bit of money to shut it down.
right, exactly. That's always right, exactly. The whole thing where it's like you got the location guy out there and he'd be pulling out money, or there's always that.
Yeah,
Absolutely, 100%.
yeah. How hard is it to work in a airport environment when you can't really have control over the air?
Yeah, that's the thing, definitely. Then you start trying to time it out.
Yeah.
But sometimes it just, sometimes we did a bunch of scenes on Scandal we do at airports, and it just, you hear it in the background. You're using the radio mics, when the actors are talking, generally it will blow out
Hmm.
the sound of, the location or the atmosphere. So, hopefully the mics are clean enough that they can use them, and you can move on and they don't have to, do ADR.
Yeah, I bet you're not happy when you see that on a schedule, and you say, "Oh, we're going to be at the airport."
Sometimes I'm always like, oh, okay, if that's what they want to do, they might come up to you and say, hey, we're thinking of doing this scene at such and such. What would that do? Well, that wouldn't be great. You'll definitely be competing against the freeway, or like if you want to shoot at the airport. So, this is, what we're up against. So, usually if they want to shoot somewhere, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, yeah. How much can actually be done in post to fix sound?
A lot. Yeah, a lot nowadays. Yeah.
A lot more nowadays than in the '70s or the.
Yeah, they have all these programs that they can, put the sound, they can process the sound through, and these it's like a pencil eraser for sound frequencies, and it just
Amazing.
they can
Amazing.
do a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
A lot more than they used to be able to. So yeah.
right. The
I
change.
think I think we would all be pretty surprised with what they can, get rid of, or how they can enhance things to kind of drown out things you don't want to hear. I think we'd all be pretty impressed and amazed with what post-production sound people do, which is, always impressive to me.
Yeah, you may know this certainly more than I would, and then maybe well, there's times where we do reshoots and we're called and we're like, okay, they need some extras to put out on the set or whatever. We're doing reshoots, but I think it's usually for because the actors or how it's how something went wrong. Do they ever
Yeah,
do reshoots now?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. With sound, they can do ADR, but sometimes if you get into something that's dialogue driven, absolutely. If they're not happy, if they 100%, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So everything about what we do is collaboration. We just collaborate with everybody. And it's a wonderful business, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. 100%. Yeah, it's fantastic.
So anyhow, Chris, this has been awesome, man. I've loved having you on. I think you gave a lot of information for anybody who either wants to get into the industry or people who are in it, who are just, a year or two. I mean, you're experienced, man. You've been around. You've been doing this. I'm so grateful that you've come on Rolling with Olan. I can't thank you enough. And thank you again to my audience. Thank you to everybody for Rolling with Olan. We'll see you next time.